Haddon, and I am at Teachstone, as Mary Margaret Gardner, my colleague, just said. And thank you for bearing with us for a couple of minutes. You think you've got everything all set, and then it turns out you don't. So we're glad you're here at the webinar. This webinar is really designed to help people who are new to class or considering adopting the class understand how the class can be used as both a measurement and a professional development system to enhance teaching and child outcomes. All right.
I'm going to go ahead and introduce myself, and I'm hoping that echo I'm hearing is not happening to you.
So the sound is off. Something is okay. Something is still off. We're so sorry.
I muted over here. Okay, so they said it's better. So I'm just gonna take it from that.
All right, going this way. Go back to the beginning of the slide.
Yeah, so we're going to try again, and please let us know if you can still hear us, because we are really monkeying around with getting things working. But
good thing we're better at interacting with children than we are with computers, Sarah.
It is a good thing that we are, yes, indeed. So if there was a huge echo, we're glad you're here at the webinar. It's designed to help folks who are new to class or who are thinking about adopting class to understand how the class can be used for both a measurement and a professional development system in order to enhance teaching and child outcomes.
All right.
And Mary Margaret, would you introduce yourself, please?
I will. My name is Mary Margaret Gardner. I'm a class specialist here at Teachstone. If you ever need to reach me, you can see my email there. I have been working in the field since 1976. I just added it up the other day. I think it's 43 years, which is kind of scary, but also cool. I've always had a passion to support teachers who work with children, our most valuable asset. I started in Teachstone in 2011, and I've been a class convert ever since. But I did learn about the class observation measure in 2006, so it's been about 13 years that I have been using this tool to really enhance the quality of interactions between teachers and children. I also play in a rock band, and I like to spend time with my family, and whenever I can wander out to the farm, I like to spend time with my horse. How about you, Sarah?
I'm Sarah Haddon. I'm the Senior Advisor for Research and Professional Services. I just did a little bit of mental math, and between Mary Margaret and myself, we have 78 years of experience in early childhood. So it's good we know how to interact with children. I have been working with the class for the last 15 years. I've been at Teachstone for 10 years, which is as long as we've been open. And for the 5 years before that, I worked at the University of Virginia on the first professional development studies that used class. And I've done a lot of things over time, including being a teacher. But what I'm really most interested in is really translating that research into practice. So making sure that what we do gets out into the field for the teachers who are making such an amazing difference in the lives of children every day. If you're not familiar with Teachstone, we're an educational company. And by now you know where we are because we've said it multiple times. Our focus is really to ensure that all children or students have access to life-changing teachers. Teachers can make such a difference, and we want to make that difference for children. We work with educators in all 50 states of the United States, and we're also around the globe in approximately 40 countries, and we are the publishers of the class. You see there a picture of our colleague JJ, and he was on a trip to Lima, Peru for Teachstone, and he did a lot of nice filming in the classrooms down there.
And I'm loving the selfie with the kids sticking their tongues out. That's hilarious. I think that's universal, right? Kids are universal.
It's very
hilarious.
universal.
That's great.
All right, and with us right now, she's muted, but our colleague Caitlin is here, and she's going to open up a poll in just a minute, and it's going to ask you how familiar you are with class.
So if you would just click on one of the following, we'll give you just a little while to chime in. Caitlin is communicating with us non-verbally. Great. I think we can go ahead and close that poll in just a second. Yeah. Wow. So we have a lot of class users. And some new people. That's
New
great.
people. We actually have a fair number of new people. Looks
Mhm.
like 30% of our
Wow.
folks are new to class. So we're really excited about that because Mary Margaret and I are certified class geeks, and we do like helping people understand a little bit more about what we do here.
All right, thank you for that. So yeah, we have, it's like a pretty even distribution of people that know a little bit or not a whole lot. And then there's some class users. So that's great. Thank you for responding to that poll. Let's go ahead and go to the next slide.
All right, so our topics for discussion today are first to talk about why interactions are important. And for those of you who are new to class, we're going to talk about interactions because they are at the heart of everything we do at Teachstone, and they are the heart of teaching. We'll talk about what class is. We'll talk about what it means to do class. And we're going to talk about how to help teachers improve interactions. We'll leave some time at the end for your questions. And then Caitlin's going to open up another poll asking you about your role.
Lots of teachers, yay.
Oh, that's nice to see.
Administrators, coaches, and other. I wish we could have a place where you could fill in what other is. Maybe they're like all of the things combined. That happens a lot too in our field. We
yes.
often have multiple roles for sure.
Definitely multiple hats.
Yeah. All right. Oh, wow, that's kind of interesting. We've got a kind of an even spread when you really look at it.
Yeah.
But yay for the teachers and coaches. We're so glad you're here.
Absolutely.
And we'll be so excited to share some information about the class with you.
Okay. And then we have one more poll.
Because we're nosy. Just kidding. We really do want to know a little bit about the age levels you work in, and then we're going to ask you what settings you work in. A lot of pre-K, upper elementary, secondary.
Yeah, it's really nice to see the upper elementary, secondary folks here as well.
That's staying pretty consistent. Wow, preschool takes the lead.
Folks. Yeah, with multiple choice, so people could. Yeah, I noticed that even with my math deficiencies, I did notice it was more than 100%. But that's great to know. Thank you for sharing that information.
And then we have another poll, and we'd just like to know about the settings that you work in.
That's later.
Oh, sorry.
We've moved it later. So we're going to talk, as I mentioned before, about the importance of interactions. And you'll see the subheading is that interactions are the key ingredient for learning. And so for those of you who are new to class stands for the Classroom Assessment Scoring System. It's a research-based measurement tool based on attachment theory. It examines teacher-child interactions because research shows that high-quality interactions between teachers and children or older children, teachers, and students are key to learning. We have over 20 years of research that demonstrates that this is true. This slide here shows us a beautiful room that's stocked with lots of interesting materials. You can also see, if you look over here where my cursor is, that there are two children sitting together over on the right. And while these children can certainly benefit from being in this classroom and taking advantage of all of these wonderful materials, there's a little bit of a but here. And so now let's look at this picture and look at a teacher who is clearly, you can tell by the look of concentration on her face that she's really paying a lot of attention to what these children are doing in the doctor's office. And the teacher there, that facilitation piece is so important. She can enhance children's vocabulary when she explains that temperature thing that the children are, pretending to put in each other's mouth is called a thermometer. And she can ask children, why is it important for doctors and nurses to wear gloves? Or why is it important for a sick person to wear a mask? So lots of things happen, a lot more things happen in that classroom when we have that active teacher facilitation. All right, we're going to show a short video. Those of you who
I've been moving the slides just in case.
Okay,
I'll just text it to you. There you go. See if it's something now.
So we're gonna, we have to go out of our PowerPoint in order to download the video and show it to you.
right, we had the video ready, but because my computer was not talking,
And we'll get started. So in this video, we have people talking about the power and importance of interactions.
okay. I don't think it would be a Sarah Haddon participant webinar without something going wrong. Okay. Nothing showing, but still pictures. Okay. Yep. Yeah. All right. Caitlin, will you please help pull up the video, which...
So when you're thinking about interactions, we think about one-to-one sort of serve and return, back and forth exchange between teachers and teachers and children. And what we look at is what is the quality of those interactions and what is the outcome of those interactions for the children and for the teachers. So it looks like we've got our video ready. So we're going to go ahead and
see, we need to move. Should be right there. Yep.
We probably all can remember one teacher who really changed our lives. And when we think about that teacher, what we think about is the relationship that they had with us, how they motivated us, how they pushed us, how they supported us. And it's really those teachers and those experiences that can be life-changing.
Interactions matter.
Interactions matter. Interactions matter. Interactions matter.
Interactions matter.
Interactions matter because they engage kids, they draw children into the resources.
Interactions matter because research shows that children who are in warm, supportive environments
And now that we've given you all, giving you a headache with all that noise. It's still too loud. We're going to move on to our next slide. Okay. And when Caitlin sends the follow-up email, we'll send you a link to that video. Okay. I'm hearing an echo, so I want to make sure that our participants are also hearing an echo. So because we couldn't see the video, I'll just talk you through it. So teacher-child interactions matter because they affect children's learning more than any other factors. They are how we improve student outcomes. They define what we already know about effective teaching. They are what teachers are doing already that can be done more consistently and more intentionally. And so sometimes teachers may get really concerned about a class observation, but really the class measures what you're doing each and every day. And interactions represent that heart of teaching. They're why we come to work every single day. And recently I was in a classroom and the teachers had on their t-shirts that they'd had made said, "Teaching is my heart."
nice.
And they were just really nice. So as I mentioned earlier, there's a lot of research behind class and effective interactions. The class measures interactions across 3 broad domains: emotional support, classroom organization, and instructional support. Mary Margaret will talk more about these in a few moments, but for now, just know that the impact of effective interactions crosses all domains. For example, emotional support, which is what teachers do to create a warm and safe environment for children, leads to increased social competence and better relationships with teachers. It also impacts language and literacy skills. Increased classroom organization, what teachers do to manage children's time, attention, and behavior in the classroom, leads to better executive functioning, inhibitory control, behavior competence, and academic gains. And then finally, instructional support, what teachers do to promote higher order thinking and language skills, leads to greater behavioral competence and language and literacy skills. All this research tells us that pre-K teachers, or all teachers, are setting the stage for greater learning. Interactions, just to summarize, interactions among teachers and children drive development of foundational skills children need to thrive in school and in life. But unfortunately, not all children are lucky enough to experience effective teacher interactions in their early educational experiences. And I know that we also have some folks who work with upper elementary and secondary, and the same is true actually across all the age ranges. And what happens then is that many children, particularly low-income children and children of color, are the least likely to be in classrooms with effective teaching. And this puts children who are already at risk for having difficulty at school at even greater risk. What we know from a number of research studies, I think I said there were 200, is that only 15% of preschool classrooms show evidence of effective interactions between teachers and children across the 3 domains of the class. We also know that less than 10% of elementary school students are in classrooms with high quality interactions year over year. And there's some really nice research that's recently come out that's showing that children in pre-K children who attended a highly effective pre-K program are much more likely to maintain the gains they made in preschool if they have kindergarten, first, and second grade teachers who engage in more effective interactions. And then finally, when we think about that last bullet about the teenagers, this is also really problematic because students who aren't motivated in school are more likely to drop out of school, which we know is not a good thing. Okay, I'm just going to show you this slide that comes from an evaluation of Dallas Intermediate School District's class implementation. They've adopted class for both measuring and improving the quality of pre-K through second grade classrooms. Outside evaluators followed almost 7,000 low-income children, primarily Hispanic and African American. And what they found was that as a result of having high quality experiences in preschool, preschoolers were much more likely to be ready for kindergarten, 62%. If they were in a kindergarten with really high quality interactions, they were 83% more likely to be ready for first grade. And then if they were in a first grade classrooms with really effective interactions, they were 80% more likely to be ready for second grade. So there's this really nice cumulative effect on children's learning and their outcomes. And now I'm going to turn it over to Mary Margaret, and she's going to talk about what does it mean to do class? Yes.
Sometimes people go, I want to do class, so how do I do that? And so we're going to try to attempt to answer that question. Okay, so the classroom assessment scoring system is exactly that. It's a system or a measure or a tool that is designed to measure and improve teaching quality. We look at the effectiveness of teacher-child interactions and we measure those. It aligns that measurement with professional development to produce effective teaching and learning gains. And I think Sarah and I mentioned a couple of times that we have over 200 studies, I think, probably that support this in not just in the United States, but globally. So we really look at how do the teachers interact with children, how to use time and materials to engage the children and get the most out of every moment in instructional time, and how do we get the children engaged and stimulated and join in as learning partners in exploration of thoughts and ideas, concepts, etc. They have a direct impact on student outcomes, as Sarah mentioned earlier. We do have a tool that crosses all the way from infant through secondary. So, excuse me, a little bit of a cold. We do have a separate discrete measure for each age level based on the developmental needs of those children. And that we see that across these measures that there are similarities that tell us how effective teacher-child interactions are. One of them is that we have a warm, sensitive, individualized relationship between the teachers and the children. And also with the children, we do like to see building a sense of community. We start talking about with the pre-K. And it's a predictable, proactive, and engaging environment, and one that's stimulating and language-rich as well as responsive.
Yeah. So the class scale is a 7-point scale. And the scores reflect the overall effectiveness of interactions in the classroom. A low rating means, actually, let's start at the high, because I like to start with the high end.
Highly effective.
Highly effective. At that high range, the interactions between the teacher and the students and among the students are really effective. It means that the observer often sees the types of interactions that have been proven to positively impact student outcomes. That mid-range description at that 3, 4, or 5 means that the observer sometimes sees the type of interactions that have been proven to positively impact student outcomes. So sometimes they happen, sometimes they don't, or they may happen with some children but not with other children. And that low range code means that we're really not seeing much of anything, which means that the classroom's really instructionally passive for that child.
We can
or
see
for those
lack
children,
of connection.
lack of connection.
So we do have an assessment system, and then this is our pre-K manual, which is how scores are derived. Our coders are trained to watch and observe the classroom in 20-minute cycles and taking notes about everything that's going across all of the dimensions for the tool. And then at the end of that cycle, they're coded, given a number score, and that is on that 1 to 7 scale. And we code for 10 minutes. So a typical cycle takes around 30 minutes. We begin that new cycle, and we try to capture what's going on in a variety of classroom activities. So typically an observer is in for a minimum of 4 cycles, and sometimes as many as 6 cycles, to really get a good snapshot of what's going on during that day. Also, you need to know that it's not just, we're not there to get you. It's not like I want to find out what you're doing wrong. And one of the things I love about this assessment system is it is not deficit-based, like many of our measures are in the field. This is really something that we can directly link professional development to specific types of interactions and behaviors that can really help teachers improve their interactions. Sarah, did you want to add something?
I was just going to ask you if you've ever in your time as a teacher, you thought through professional development that you thought this is a complete and total waste of my time.
Oh, maybe once or twice.
Yeah, me too. And so that's really nice about class-based PD.
Yeah, and the teachers that receive class-based professional development, really, I have seen them thrive. In fact, I was in a classroom yesterday with a teacher I've known for a number of years, and I was so excited by how much she's blossomed in the way that she interacted with children. And what sets us apart is that it's proven. This is the most highly researched assessment tool for measuring and improving quality. It's established in over 7,400 programs in all 50 states, and it says 35 countries. I believe it's more like 40 or 42. It can be used effectively in any program of all sizes at all age levels and alongside any curriculum. And it's systematic. There's that structured approach to teacher improvement through a proven methodology for teacher assessment and intervention. So the reason class is so helpful is that in the field of education, we have a lot of jargon and acronyms and words that might mean one thing to one group or something else to another. But the thing that is really nice about this is we have a shared lens. We're using a common language for all of the people who may be interested in using the class. We see that if I'm talking to some teachers, coaches, observers, or whatever about positive climate, and I talk about what it means to have relationships, we have markers and descriptions of what that really looks like, and we talk about it in the same way. Okay, so how do I start?
So Caitlin's going to do a poll.
Okay, sorry, that's where the poll came.
Yes.
So we'd like to know how you're planning to use class. We know a little bit about this now from our earlier poll, but we'd like to drive down a little deeper on how you might be planning to use the class or how you use it. Okay, let's see what we got, Kate. Okay, so we have a lot of people who are already using the class, so a lot of this information won't be new to you, but we're glad you're here. Professional development and assessment look like people are interested, and some people would just really like to see more information. So we're glad that we've got that nice range here, and I know that some of you who are already using class do find it to be really beneficial. Do we have any comments that we need to respond to, Caitlin? Caitlin's just taking a quick look at the chat. Okay, so it looks like people are just talking about a little bit about how they're using that.
Okay.
Okay, so getting.
I was also going to
ahead.
jump in because between the two of us, Mary Margaret and I have 25, 20 something years of experience with class.
Right.
Those of you who already using class, any of those tough questions, when we get to the end, you can feel free to ask them.
Nothing better than a question as far as I'm concerned. So how do we get started? That's the next question, right? So you need to learn about class. So the fact that you're attending this webinar is a great start. You need to learn about what it measures, how it measures, and links to professional development. We want to get our teaching staff familiar with what it is that we're looking for and understanding the terminology. So that basic overview of class is a really great place to start. Then we need to make sure that you have certified class observers. It's a very complicated tool and a very powerful tool. And so we don't want people going out into the field doing class observations if they don't really understand the measure. So we do those 2 hour observations, and then, as we mentioned, recording the peer-to-peer and teacher student interactions. Then we gather that data to identify areas of strength and areas of growth. So we really are strength-based focus. What's going well in that classroom, and how can we do more of that? We can provide professional development down to the individual teacher, down to a cycle level, or we can look at program or district-wide data and provide professional development around that. So I had mentioned earlier becoming a certified observer. So a class observation training is a very intensive, and I know probably some of you are certified observers, so you're probably saying, oh yeah, a very intensive 2-day training where you learn about the measure and then how to code classrooms. It's an exhausting process, but when you walk out of there, you're ready to start studying to take that test, and you have to take an online certification test. And then we do require recertification annually to make sure that our data that we're collecting is valid. Oops. So that reliability test demonstrates that an observer has learned how to accurately observe and code classrooms. And reliability provides that standardization across all class observations. So if I'm in Ohio coding, then I'm going to code with someone from Ohio, and we're going to get, if they're reliable and I'm reliable, we're going to code in a similar manner and have scores that fall within the desirable range. So there is a process. So sometimes we lose sight of what happens with the data. And so what's really important is we have this systematic approach to improving teaching and learning. So you collect the observation data. That's sort of the darker piece at the top of the circle there. Once you get that observation data, that baseline data, then you use that to identify each teacher's needs. So what are they doing well? What can they do more of? Where are areas of challenge? And the one thing that I really love about class is when you have observations that have actual data of actual interactions that happen in the moment, you can ask teachers about what was going on, and they feel like they are being heard and understood, and that you're actually in their classroom and you're not just coming with some, you know, broad stroke professional development, but it's really about what's happening in the moment, because the teachers know their classrooms and they know what's going on, and they can give feedback to the coach as well about the data that is being collected. We provide that feedback and differentiate that professional development for the teachers, and sometimes we can do that by grouping teachers together that might have similar interests and similar challenges. We provide that content and context for that effective PD. And then as we do that, we can go back and collect data again and see if our professional development is indeed working. And that is one of the things that I think is one of the most powerful things about this measure. So when we do coaching, it really is a collaborative partnership. Our coaching cycle, it consists of, as I mentioned before, and I'm just sort of reiterating this, as we get the data, we have gather that class information. That's our baseline. Let's see what's going on in that classroom. Where do we want to improve? How do we want to focus our attention? We're going to take a look at that data because we know that it's objective and specific we can take it all the way down to the time of day or the individual dimensions. We can look at ratio, we can look at content and format and make decisions on how and where we're going to spend our time with our teacher. Then we engage our teacher, get that perspective, share the resources, and collaboratively plan to what comes next. And I know that when somebody's coming in to coach me or to mentor me or to help me, I want it to be something that is important to me, not somebody else's idea of what I should be doing. And I think that is one of the things that makes us so powerful in changing teacher practice.
And I'm just going to add one comment about the coaching is that for those of you who are familiar with practice-based coaching, that is what class is. It is definitely practice-based coaching.
Yeah, it's relevant to your world, and it's done over time because we know that we need to gradually inform practice and not come with a broad stroke. So doing class means supporting teachers to align their teaching in ways that improve student outcomes. There's not just one way to implement class-based professional development. So training, we have introduction training, we have trainings designed around specific domains and improving interactions, we have the observation trainings, we have a longer course, which is group coaching, we have online training, we have a lot of resources on our website that you can just check out without having to engage much farther than that. But we also have coursework and online learning resources. And then we do have coaching programs. And again, this is strength-based. We're really helping teachers see what they're already doing that's already class-like. You don't really do class, you just interact with children. And what we do is we measure the quality of that teaching, and we use that measure in order to support teachers.
And I'm just going to add in that, now I've forgotten what I was going to say. Oh, for those of you who are new to class, when you log on to the Teachstone website, if you pull down under the resources tab, you'll find a lot of free resources. We have free resources for teachers, for coaches, for Head Start folks. So I would, if you're interested, I would encourage you to look at them.
Yes, we do a lot of work with quality rating improvement systems. We work with school systems. We work with Head Start. With a lot of research around the globe. And so we are basically touching, I don't even know how many millions of teachers and children, but I'm sure if you added up the numbers, they would be astounding. So class is the gold standard for assessment of teacher-child interactions. And we know that those interactions, those moment-to-moment exchanges, are the foundation for children to thrive in school and life. When you think about a teacher that impacted your life in a positive way, that motivated you or made you feel important or special or challenged you to learn, those teachers were probably showing effective interactions that we would measure on the class scale. So now it's time for questions, and we're gonna have to get Caitlin to read questions out to us so we can answer them.
There's some very specific
And
ones.
Sarah can read them.
Okay, so this question says, for a class of 20 students, how many observers have to come to observe? Last year you had 2 observers, so it was 5 adults in the room.
For teachers, she said somewhere else.
So if you've got a class of 20, it actually doesn't matter how many students you have in the classroom. You would only typically have one observer. There are a couple of reasons why you might have two observers. One may be that the observers are double coding, which means that they're standing side by side, observing the same thing and independently assigning codes. Double coding, some people will call it peer coding or shadow coding, or shadow scoring, but it's really important because it helps ensure that people aren't drifting away from the tool and that they're really coding the way they're supposed to.
Right, so it's a professional development quality assurance issue. So if you do have to, I know that when we do double coding, it is a lot of adults in the room, but the adults do try to stay together and not interfere with the class. And that's the classroom. That is something that we encourage coders to do, is to be more like a fly on the wall than a fly in the ointment.
Right.
Any other questions?
I want to actually go back to
Sure.
another reason why you might have two observers, and that's if, and this is really unusual, but sometimes an organization may want to separately assess the lead teacher and the assistant teacher, or a lead teacher and a student teacher. And so then they send in two observers who are watching two different people. Same thing could happen if you're team teaching. So as a general rule, that's not how we do it. We like to weigh the interactions of all the adults together, but it's possible.
Right, because we can use this for establishing a baseline for professional development, also for supervision, for research. There's so many uses of the measure.
Mm-hmm. Is the intro to class considered the teaching staff overview, or is there another shorter resource an affiliate trainer could use?
So
That's a really good question.
That is, right now, all we really have is the introduction training as an overview and our online resources. So affiliate trainers would be delivering what we call the introduction, and that's typically, we call a half-day program with just a very top-level overview of the dimensions and domains and how they work together, with a little bit of video and discussion thrown in. After this webinar, what is the next best step towards implementing class with a limited budget? That's a great question. If you contact us, we have our next slide. You can reach out and someone can help you. We have implementation specialists that can help you design your professional development and your class journey based on what your particular needs are. And we're happy to do that, and I'm glad for the question.
Yeah, I would also say that, I mean, obviously, the first thing is to get that baseline data and figure out what your teacher's strengths are, what are their areas for growth. And then there are a lot of different resources that we have that range from, the Cadillac coaching, which is not going to work on a limited budget, to things like dimensions guides that explain the class in teacher-friendly language. We really do have a lot of free resources on our website. We also have something called the class dictionary and strategy cards. And I've been working with class for 15 years, and it is the most exciting thing I've seen come out for teachers. And they really break down what interactions look like at different times of the day. And if you're working in a childcare program and you've got infant, toddlers, and preschoolers, it's all there in that class dictionary and strategy cards.
Right, and we also have one-day trainings that are not to introduction, that are more targeted around instructional support strategies, and we have something called the primer that looks kind of overview at infant, toddler, and pre-K level. So we do have quite a lot of options there for you and ways to deliver that training and join in with others and co-host training. So again, reach out to us and we will be more than happy to get you on the path.
Okay. You spoke briefly about using class to inform PD. Are there any documents in the free resources regarding that?
There's a PD ebook.
There's Caitlin is reminding me that there is an ebook on what is class. There are actually a lot of ebooks. The other thing we have is we have a lot of webinars that you can look at, and Mary Margaret and I have done a large number of video blogs, which we call vlogs, VLOGS. And if you go to the Teachstone YouTube station and Google one of our names, actually her name, Mary Margaret Gardner, or vlogs, we talk through class ad nauseum, and that might be also a really nice way for you to think about.
Yeah. We've got a really nice set of
PD.
podcasts. There's a ton of resources. You just have to kind of go fool around on the website, but we encourage you to do that.
Yes.
How is class being used in family childcare? Oh my gosh, what a great question.
Class is being used in family childcare, and it's a great question, and it's interesting that you asked it because I am currently, not at this moment, but one of my big tasks right now is to develop. Well, actually, I just finished developing a document that's called Considerations for Coding in Family Childcare that spells out different options that people can take in order to use class, because we do have those mixed age and makes it really kind of complicated. And what I've tried to do in the document, which is not quite ready, but it should be soon, is to demystify it and lay out the pros and cons of the different alternatives that people tend to be using in family childcare. I'm also working on an overarching protocol on using class and family childcare. So, and soon we'll be having a blog, not a blog post, yes, a blog post about class and family childcare. So it's very much on our mind.
There's some research too and resources. If they search under research,
And,
stuff under there.
and Caitlin is reminding, because Caitlin is our guru for knowing everything that's on our website, but she also says there are free resources around family childcare. And I know that actually there's a series,
there's a series
of blogs that my colleague Mary Margaret did.
Yeah, and it works in family childcare. We're just looking at interactions. I could probably code airport interactions when I travel around the country. You can tell a lot about what's going on with teachers and children. And I've worked closely with family childcare in the past, and I also know of programs that are using the class and family childcare and are finding it useful.
Okay.
Class is new to us, and we have to deal with some resistance. Yes, sometimes that is. I think sometimes it's seen as just one more thing. And so the heart of class is really reaching towards the heart of teachers and helping them understand that we're not here to punish them or tell them what they're doing wrong, but just to chronicle what's happening during the day, and then have those more informed discussions. So getting people on board is really finding those teachable moments like we do with children, and capitalizing on the things that they're doing well, and using class language to support that. So you might say, I noticed when you walked into the classroom, all the children ran up and hugged you today, and that shows that they're so comfortable with you and that you provided a secure base for them. And then you got down on their level and talked to them each one and used their names and talked to them about what they had done the night before. And so if I was a coder, I would be coding that under emotional support, under positive climate and teacher sensitivity. And that's great, because when teachers and children are connected, children are excited about learning. So good for you. Yeah. Those are the kind of things that we need to say to teachers instead of saying, you didn't smile today, because that's not going to make them smile. We really want to capture what brings joy to teachers and build on that.
Yeah. The other thing, I will say, and I feel like I'm a broken record about things on our website, but there is also a 4-part blog series on creating buy-in
Right.
with the class that might be helpful for you.
I can't read that.
Has class been used in refugee camp working with children dealing with trauma at all? That is an amazing question. One of our colleagues went 2 years ago to Lebanon and was training and did class trainings, and did a class training among workers who were working in refugee camps.
We also had a number of years ago some people from Kyrgyzstan, I know I'm not saying that right.
Kyrgyzstan.
Yes, thank you, who came and learned about the class because they had quite a few children that had immigrated because of conflict. And so I think it was in the tens of thousands of children in their systems, and they came to us and asked us about class and how they could use that to support those trauma-informed children.
Yeah, and I would also add in that while we don't in the United States generally have children in refugee camps, certainly if we think about some of the horrible flooding and wildfires that have happened, we have a lot of very traumatized children, and
what better
class
time
is definitely being used. For example, First Five California is using class across the state, Louisiana Department of Education, where they've had some serious flooding and serious hurricanes, is also using class.
I did some work with some schools that had experienced some explosions, gas explosions in their town. And they used class beautifully to support those children emotionally. And so they were so connected. It was really a really interesting group of centers, and many of the children there were in foster care, and you would not know from behavior that children were excited to be there. They were connected to their teachers. The interactions were so powerful. It was really nice to see those kind of interactions.
Yeah, thank you for that great question.
After school programs.
After school programs, it's been used in class. Let me say it this way, people are dipping their toes into using class and after school programs. I know that there's a organization that's doing after school care for Dallas ISD, and they're starting to use class. And we hear about it just here and there. But
We certainly have the age levels to cover it.
We have age levels to
Yep.
cover it, and we really don't have research behind it because it's so new. But one of the things, because I've probably talked with 20 organizations over the years about using class and after school care, and the consensus seems to be that the emotional support piece of forming those relationships in the classroom organization piece work pretty well, but instructional support can be more of an issue.
At one point in my many lives in the early childhood field, I actually ran an after-school center that had 125 kids from 6 till 12. And we basically ran it like a big classroom. And so that was a very long time ago. But I could see how we could have used the measure for professional development for my staff, because they were doing things like helping kids with homework and creating all kinds of fun projects and arts and crafts and playing outside and negotiating conflict. And so, yeah, I can certainly see how that would work. Wouldn't that be fun to be able to take that a little deeper, Sarah?
Yeah, it would.
I was an observer previously, however, did not renew in time. Do I need to take the entire course over? Unfortunately, yes.
Unless it's been within the last 3 months.
Yes. And that's the thing. Once you become a certified observer, it's really good to keep that certification current, even though you don't think you're going to be using it. You think, oh, well, it's for this particular job. It really comes in handy. We have an observer directory that looks at, it gives it as a resource for people that need observers. So let's say you decide to go get your baseline data and you can't afford to have your own observers, you can hire people to come in and provide that. And it's actually good to have an disconnected, if you will, observer come into your classroom, someone that doesn't really know the program, and they can get you some really great data. So yes, you should try to keep your certification current.
Okay, and Rosie just sent in a great question too. How can I use class from a family service worker, social work point of view? Would you like to start or would you like me to?
Go ahead, but I'm sure
Okay.
I'll have something to say.
So it's really interesting because I've had a number of social workers in trainings over the years, and last year I also went to the 0 to 3 conference when it was in Denver, and I'd have lots of social workers and family service workers coming by, and we would talk about the fact that that emotional connection that we look at is just so critical in the field of social worker family support. And the same truth is going to be true in terms of organization and making sure that the kids understand the rules and the expectations and that adults are clear and consistent. So I see it as a really good match myself. And
yeah, I'm just nodding my head. Actually, I started out with I was going to be a social worker, and I started working in a child care center for extra money, and that's when I changed my focus because I thought I might be more effective there. But I also have been a family home visitor, and
yeah, I have too.
And those interactions, we've dabbled a little bit in using class with parenting, connecting, having a non-chaotic environment, and inviting exploration is something that any adult and child can do. And so I think the class would certainly apply there.
Yeah, I agree. And Kelly wants to know if there are modifications for after school. And North Dakota is going to be using class. I think I heard that. I was really excited.
We have some staff who live in North Dakota.
Yes, we do.
Yes.
But what I would say is I would try, I think it's going to in part depend on how that after school program is structured. And I think back to when my now grown children were in after school programs that that there was always a homework room. There was a room where there was always an adult who was helping kids think through their homework and helping them with their studying. And if a program has that, then I could definitely see the place for instructional support.
Helping those children explore and figure out the answers on their own instead of really just focusing on rote and recall.
Yeah.
And we definitely have, especially with K3 through secondary, we have that measure, and we know what effective interactions look like. So it certainly could be a coaching opportunity.
Yeah. But in terms of something specific, I just don't have an answer. I actually think it would be really interesting, Kelly, if you all started using it, and then we could get feedback on what's working and where things need to be changed.
The buy-in document and many other things that will be useful to you are found on our resources page. If you go to www.teachstone.com and go under resources, or there's like a little search magnifying glass that you can just type in what you're interested in.
Yeah.
And you can always call us or chat online with our people that are in our customer service group. They're fabulous, and they are really great at answering questions, or at least getting the answer for you, or getting somebody connected with you.
I'm just typing into the chat box the two folks who
You can send privately or send to all.
I'll just send it to all
Yeah.
who wrote that series.
Mamie's one of our specialists, and she's terrific and has done so much coaching. So that would be a great thing.
This is after school person.
Oh, okay. Kelly, that's
Not
great to
Jacob.
know that you're going to be doing it in early December. I think we'll do some looking to find out who's going to be training you.
Yeah, somebody's saying there's no sound. I'm hoping that's
It might just be something on there.
okay.
Okay.
I think that's it.
All right, well, it's about 6 minutes to 4. You guys have been a great audience. Thanks for sticking with us with some of our glitches. We're really happy that you joined us, and we hope that you'll follow up with us. We do have some information up for our website, our phone number, and then you can also email us at learnmore@teachstone.com, and somebody will be back in touch with you. Thanks again for your time today. We really appreciate your interest in the class, and we hope you've learned something and taken away some good ideas.
Yes. And thank you, Mary Margaret, because I know you're not feeling well. And thank you, Caitlin, for helping us deal with all of these glitches.
I think we have one more slide.
Oh, we do have one more slide.
Thanks, everybody.
All right. We'll stay on for just a moment in case anyone has a question that they didn't want to ask for the entire group.
Thank you.
All right. Have a great afternoon.